Here we are, another day in quarantine, and before I start talking about what I'm going to be making for dinner tonight, I am going to talk a little bit about this wine. So the first wine that I'm going to be talking about and drinking today is the 2018 Red Blend by Pray Tell. My friend Jessie, who is also one of the wine women of Dame, texted me some tasting notes, so I'm going to read them right now. I'm just going to read exactly what she told me. So it's 60% Pinot Noir, 40% Gamay, made in the Burgundian Beaujolais style, so it's a little funky, semi-carbonic, and full of life. Good wine made by good people. So, I can't wait. Thanks, Jessie. Okay, let's open her up. Yum, that's delicious. If you're in the Portland area and are in need of some tasty wines, definitely check out Dame Restaurant. I have all of their information linked below. They will pick out half a case or a full case if you want it, just a couple bottles, some good takeout food. Definitely check them out. I highly recommend it. They are knowledgeable and so very kind. So, for dinner tonight, I'm going to be making gnocchi in broth. I'm going to top it with some Parmesan cheese and maybe a little bit of lemon zest as well. I wanted to do it in broth today because I cooked a whole roasted chicken the other night, which the video is on my channel. So I took that chicken carcass after we finished eating the whole thing and I turned it into broth. So that is what I'm going to be using as the sauce for my little gnocchis to swim around in. If you want to learn how to make homemade gnocchi, then stick around. If you are wanting to make chicken broth for this recipe, this is what you'll need to do. This morning, I took the chicken out of the refrigerator, I picked it clean, made sure that there was no meat left on the bones. I took a sheet pan, lined it with parchment paper, preheated my oven to 425 degrees. I placed my chicken bones onto the sheet pan and placed them in the oven, set a timer for 20 minutes, walked away. Then after 20 minutes, took the bones out of the oven with tongs, moved the bones from the sheet pan into a pot. I covered the bones with cool water and I set the stove temperature to medium so that it would start to simmer. And then I simmered it for about 8 hours. At a low simmer, you want movement in your water, but you don't want a rolling boil. After about 8 hours, I tasted the stock and it was the flavor that I wanted it to be. The amount that you leave your stock on is really up to you and the flavor that you're trying to achieve. If you want to add aromatics to your broth, you are more than welcome to do that too. After you've added water over the bones, you can throw in garlic, you can throw in a sachet of spices, you can throw in whole herbs. That's up to you, but I just went very simple with this one today because I wanted the flavor of the gnocchi and the flavor of the cheese that I'm going to top it with to really be the star. The ingredients that you're going to need to make the gnocchi dough are 2 pounds of russet potatoes, 1 cup of all-purpose flour or 00 flour, whatever you have around is just fine. I'm using 00 flour, and then the yolk of an egg, just 1 egg. And salt, always. We always have salt. And then for topping broth situation, I'm going to be zesting a little bit of lemon, using some of the juice to season the broth, and then I'm going to top with a little bit of Parmesan. Some tools that you're going to want to have handy are a vegetable peeler to peel the potatoes, something similar to a bench scraper like this. I'm going to use this when kneading the dough, cleaning off my work surface, cutting the gnocchi. You could also use maybe a spatula or a knife. I'm going to be rolling my gnocchi with this little board here. If you don't have this, we'll use a fork. And I'm gonna show you how to use a fork also, but this is like the tool, the gnocchi tool. And then, this is where I'm embarrassed. Ideally, you would rice your potatoes after they're cooked. I don't have a potato ricer, and this is not necessarily the time to go to sur la table. So I'm going to be using a potato masher. If you don't have a potato ricer or this, you can use forks. You could even use your hands. We gotta get creative, right? We're using what we have. These are all ingredients that I already had. So yeah, let's make some gnocchi. The first step in making the gnocchi is going to be completely peeling your russet potatoes. After you finish that, you're going to want to cut your potatoes into smaller chunks. That way they cook faster in the water. After you cut the potatoes into smaller chunks, I'm going to put them into a large pot, cover them with cold water, and bring those up to simmer together. The reason for boiling these potatoes is you want them soft and very malleable, to the point where you can mash them very finely. The potatoes are going to be the main part to this dough. The potatoes have been boiling for about 20 to 30 minutes now. They are soft. If you were to try and pick them up with a fork, they would slide off. So I'm just now going to take them out of the water and place them in this bowl. So the potatoes are done boiling. I've moved them onto this cutting board here, and I'm going to start mashing them. They have cooled down a little bit so I can handle and hold them without burning my fingers. If you let them sit around for too long, they're going to get gummy and they're going to change the consistency of your dough altogether. You want them to be warm and able to hold them, but you don't want them to be cold and you don't want them to be too hot. If you have a potato ricer, you lucky son of... This would be the part that you would take your potatoes and put them through the ricer. I'm just going to start mashing them with this. If you don't have a potato masher, use a fork is fine. Or you can use your hands. The goal of this right here is to, you want them to be finely mashed. You don't want any kind of like chunk in the dough. You want it to be as smooth as possible to get that perfect gnocchi pillow. After I have mashed the potatoes, it should look something like this. If you have a ricer, it'll look a little bit different. But I'm going to take this off of the cutting board and onto my clean work surface. And now I'm going to start adding the last two ingredients, which is going to be my cup of 00 flour and then an egg yolk. So I made a slight little well in my potatoes. I added the egg yolk, and I'm gonna just kind of slowly start to add this flour while I knead it all together. Once you have kneaded your potatoes, flour, and egg yolk together, kind of just form a little log like this. The texture of this should be feeling a little bit wet, not too wet, not too tacky. It feels starchy, honestly, obviously because of the potato, but we're going to use a lot of extra flour when rolling, so this slight wetness to this is totally fine. You are going to want a bunch of extra flour, AP flour or 00 is fine. I'm gonna sprinkle some of this down. I'm going to cut a little section of the bigger log off, and then I'm just gonna start working this into a small little snake. All right. Voila. So the thickness of this is kind of really just up to you. I'd say mine is like maybe the size of a ring finger. I'm gonna go down and cut like inch portions, and that is going to be the actual gnocchi dumplings. So just go down and cut these little pillows. And you are more than welcome to stop at this point here and throw these into the boiling water to cook them like this. That's fine. I would recommend scoring them in some way, which is what we're going to do when we use this. And I'm also going to demonstrate how to use a fork to do the same thing. This is because it's going to add a few pockets in your gnocchi where sauce can collect. It's going to make them not as dense. Like this is a solid piece of potato essentially, so by rolling it down something with ridges, you're going to create grooves and pockets for sauce to collect, and it's just the way it's supposed to be. But if you don't want to, who cares? So if you have a board like this, I would recommend dusting a little bit of flour on the board, a little bit of flour on your hands so that nothing sticks to you. Then you'll take your gnocchi, press down with your thumb, and then roll your gnocchi down the board like that. We're now going to do the same thing with our fork. So I'm going to hold my fork at an angle like this. I'm going to press the gnocchi into the ridges of the fork and slide it down like so. Now I'm going to repeat that whole process with the rest of the dough, and once I'm done with that, I'll show you how to cook it off, how to plate our gnocchi in broth, and then what to do with the leftover gnocchi, because this did make a lot more than we are going to need to eat tonight. So here we go. I have rolled out all of my gnocchi. I am going to cook this off for dinner, and I have a lot left over, which is really exciting. This I'm going to freeze, and how I would recommend freezing this gnocchi is on some kind of flat surface, a sheet tray or a plate, whatever fits into your freezer, with parchment paper, flour dusted on the bottom. I'm going to wrap this in plastic wrap and place it in our freezer. Once it's frozen solid, you can kind of stack them in other containers if you want to portion them out maybe, or put them in something that's going to fit better in your freezer. That's what I would recommend, and that's how I freeze pasta too. You just kind of want it to freeze fully, because if it thaws at all, it's going to end up sticking to each other. So we have our boiling water here. I'm warming my broth up on this back burner, and then what I'm going to do is just take all of the gnocchi and drop them into the water at the same time. Here they go. Now what I'm waiting for is them to start rising to the top. They're all at the bottom right now. Once they start to cook, they're going to start swimming, and once they reach the top of the boiling water, leave them in for a minute and then pull them out of the water. I just pulled the gnocchi out of the boiling water once they were fully cooked. I placed them in this bowl for my final plating. But if you are going to do some kind of sauce rather than a broth, whether that be a pesto or a red sauce, I would take the gnocchi out of the boiling water and put them straight into your sauce and toss them around like you would do with pasta. But since I'm doing broth, I'm gonna just do it a little bit differently. So here they are in our bowl. I'm just gonna take a ladle full of our chicken broth. This is the chicken broth that I made earlier today. I reheated it. I'm just gonna put 1 ladle full, so now our gnocchi is just like halfway in the broth, a little bit in, a little bit out. I'm gonna take this lemon and just do a few zests into the broth with the gnocchi. This is just added acidity and sweetness to cut through the fattiness of the broth. Just like that. I'm also gonna cut my lemon in half and squirt a bit of juice in the broth as well, for the same reason as the zest, just a few little squirts like that. Some finishing salt, and the best part, the cheese. And I'm gonna use a lot. All right, here it is, our gnocchi in broth. Eat gnocchi!